So let me go back to the traditional models in strategy, because as you know, one of the things I've been working on very hard is what I call the new strategy playbook, that we really,
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff just doesn't work anymore. And I think you've raised a couple of those concepts. And one of the more time honored ones is this notion of a value chain that
Yes.
begins here, and then you have raw materials, and then you have an input process, and then you have some kind of manufacturing process, and then you have this conversion into a product, and then you've got sales and marketing and outreach, and it's all this sort of super orderly chain, and then underlying it are logistics and the sort of corporate wide functions. And not that it's a bad framework, and in an
Yeah.
asset intensive, pretty stable market where your industry boundaries are relatively clear,
Hmm. Yeah.
I think I used to teach it in my
Oh.
MBA courses. But I think looking at the world that way, in a world which is asset light, where
Yes.
knowledge and communication are more the currency of the realm than a particular object or thing, I think it can really be very misleading. So I think one of the things I'm very intrigued at your interaction field idea is you've actually gone beyond ecosystems even.
Hmm.
And so maybe tell us that journey. Like, how do you go from a value chain centric version of the world
Yeah.
to an ecosystem? And now you've gone way beyond ecosystems even.
Yeah. So if you look at the value chain idea, the strategy and competitive advantage rests on differences in the activities, and primarily differences activities along the value chain in some ways. You get a BMW from Munich because it's the ultimate driving machine. The marketing people have differentiated through branding, make us Americans believe, if you will, that this is not like a Mercedes. The ultimate driving machine is BMW. And the R&D people have put technology in there. And we know that technology is superior in a BMW than a Mercedes, which it isn't, but we all believe so. An Audi. And that
Make it is
value.
so. Come on, you're betraying your roots here.
That's true. That's true. I love all three companies actually: Audi, Mercedes, BMW. If I only could afford the garage here in New York, yeah. It's the car is not the problem. It's the garage that is so expensive. But when you think about that kind of mindset works when you compete with Mercedes, BMW, and Audi, the three or four or five, and you can sort of figure out the difference in the activities, and you can also brand those when you're just looking at a very relatively small set, and and that is a good thing to do. But now with so many companies out there that also offer these kind of cars, and the choice isn't really anymore between a BMW Mercedes. You say, like, how about a BMW Mercedes, or maybe I buy a Land Rover, let's say. So that the consumers look no longer just within a defined set of 2, 3 competitors. So the competing on differences and creating an advantage is simply, in this day and age, incredibly difficult. And so I thought, it's sort of, how do you create competitive advantage? Now, it's good if you can go through a value chain analysis and you come up with differences, and that's always good to have. But value isn't really created no longer through differences. And what I found, and this got me so excited, in 2014, there were these two economists called in Toulouse, University of Toulouse. Jean Roger is one of them. And the two economists got a Nobel Prize for a paper that they wrote 10 years before. I would have never been able to read, even though I have an undergraduate in economics from the University of Frankfurt. But it triggered my thought. They talked about two-sided marketplaces. And the idea here is that the value is no longer created in the value chain through becoming different or creating differences or branding differences along the value chain. The value is created by capturing interactions and connections in several sides of a market. And I looked at what was for me sort of interesting is what is really the biggest, if 20, 30 years ago, the biggest trend was from tangible to intangible assets as part of the firm. The biggest change that we talk about today is, yeah, you can talk about this technology and that, you can talk about cloud, you can talk about AI, you can talk about ML, you can talk about social media, you can talk about mobile phones, but all of these do one thing. They create some hyper connectivity of everything, of people, of things, of companies, globally, anywhere. And what I saw in that paper, that Nobel Prize winning paper, and 6 years ago, is that value creation is shifting from the traditional pipeline model to creating these platforms, ecosystems, and what I call interaction fields. And the more interaction, well, I call it velocity, you create, the more you drive entirely new value, not supply side values, but demand side values, network effects, viral effects, learning effects. And it is actually those effects that actually companies really create now new values for, and sort of makes great stuff happening.